My name is Żywia, not because that's what my mother wanted, but because when I was born, Baba Marzanna looked at me and said, "This one lives with her whole body," and so it remained. I was born in a Banya, not in a room, not by a bed, not by a chimney, but there behind the barn, in a low wooden house that stood so close to the river that at night you could hear through its walls how the water talks to the stones, where the steam is so thick that the world disappears, and you are left alone with your breath and with the presence of something that has no name, but is more real than anything you can touch. Thus began my life, on the threshold, and from that moment, through every year, every season, every holiday, and every birth I attended, every illness I treated with herbs, every woman I guided through the darkness, it was always about the same thing, about the threshold, about the fact that life is a constant transition from one state to another, and that every such transition requires cleansing. Listen to me carefully, because what I am telling you is disappearing. Slowly, but it is disappearing. New people are coming with a new God and saying that our ways are dirty, that our rituals are a sin, that our knowledge is superstition. And I sit by the fire, and I know one thing. For 40 years I have brought over 100 children into the world. None died through my fault. No mother passed away because of something I didn't know. My knowledge is old, older than any record, older than the word. I will tell you about it, all of it. Before I tell you anything about the Banya, I must tell you about water. Water was before everything, before the gods, before the sky, before the earth. Our oldest songs say that in the beginning there was only water, huge, dark, without end, and from this water the world emerged. Therefore water is the mother of everything that is. The river behind our village, Ralka we call it, is alive. This is not poetry. This is a fact that every child in our village knows before they learn to walk. Ralka has its own voice. In the spring it screams. The water is brown with clay. It runs fast, hits the banks with the gravity of someone who has an important matter. In the summer it slows down, darkens, becomes so warm in the shallows that you can stand in it for hours as if in a heated banya. In the autumn it falls silent. It flows, but quietly, as if thinking about something serious. In the winter it falls asleep under the ice, but it never dies, because in the middle of the river, invisible to the eye, a current still flows, dark, cold, persistent. Souls live in the river. I'm not saying this to scare you. I say it because it's a truth you sense when you stand waist deep in water and close your eyes. Something is there, something that knows you are there. Therefore, when I go to the river to bathe, and I go there regularly because bathing in the river is as necessary as eating, I do not enter the water like a tool. I stand on the shore, I look, I wait a moment because respect requires not to hurry. And I say, quietly, almost to myself, I ask for permission, I ask for cleansing, I come to you pure in intention. Ralka hears. It doesn't answer with words, but it changes. Either it slows the current where I enter, or a fish passes my legs and does not flee. Or it is simply different in the water when you ask than when you don't. I don't know how to explain it, but I know it's true. Bathing in the river washes away everything you don't want to carry. And I'm serious. Everything. A bad dream that stuck to the morning. Words that someone said and that entered you like a splinter. Fatigue that is deeper than ordinary fatigue of the body. It is the fatigue of the spirit that gathers unnoticed for weeks and suddenly pulls you toward the earth. Water takes it all. It doesn't ask, it doesn't judge. It takes and carries it further, where it thins out and becomes neutral. But there is one water that is above all others, the spring. Our spring is half an hour's walk from the village, in the forest, where old oaks grow whose crowns cannot be seen because they are lost in the sky. The water flows from under the roots of the largest of them, quietly, calmly, as if it wanted to leave unnoticed. It is ice cold even in August. It is so clear that you see through it every grain of sand at the bottom. This water has passed through Żywia. Żywia is not hell. Do not mistake it. Żywia is an underground kingdom where the souls of those who have already left and the souls of those who have not yet come reside. This is a layer of reality lying below our layer, under Żywia, under the world of the living. The water from the spring passed through this layer. It was in a dark place and came out clean. That's why it has double power. That's why it heals what ordinary water doesn't heal. By the oak, I always leave something, a piece of colored wool tied to a twig, a handful of grain, sometimes a small cake with honey. Not because someone told me to, because when you take something precious, you give something in return. This is the principle on which our whole world stands. And now, the Banya. Our bathhouse was built by men, but ruled by women, always. It stood behind the barn, between an old apple tree and the river. It was low, a low roof, a small window covered in winter with skin, open in summer. Walls of thick logs, sealed with moss and clay. Inside, a stove with stones, 2 benches, a trough for water, a corner for herbs, and the Banik, the spirit of the bathhouse. I have never seen him, and it's good, because whoever sees the Banik doesn't necessarily fare well after that. But he is always felt. He is in the Banya like an old master of the house sitting in the corner and watching, assessing, deciding if you are here with good intention. Before you enter, you stand in the doorway and ask. This is not an option, it is a duty. Banik, let me enter, let me be cleansed, let me come out clean. Or your own words, if you have your own words. And every woman should have her own words. If you don't ask, if you enter arrogantly like into an empty building that is your property, the Banik feels it. And he can give it to you, dizziness, fainting, a feeling of suffocating, although the steam is correct. This is not an accident, this is an admonition. When you ask, everything is different. You enter and feel that the place accepts you. Steam. We start with fire. The stones heat up for a long time, an hour, maybe more. You can't hurry because stones that are not well heated will crack when you pour water on them and can hurt someone. When the stones are ready, they are dark red, almost orange deep inside. You take a wooden ladle and slowly, carefully, with respect, add water. Hiss, an explosion of steam. The whole building in an instant becomes something else. Steam goes everywhere, into every pore of the skin, into every crack between the fingers, into the nostrils, into the ears, into places that normal life keeps closed. The body opens. There is no other word. It opens. It becomes permeable. The boundary between what is inside and what is outside blurs. And that's just the point. Because cleansing requires opening. You cannot cleanse a closed vessel. You must open it to pour out what you don't want and pour in what you want to have. Steam opens it. Steam is the key. A birch whisk, the brush, must be gathered in the spring when the leaves are still young and have all the spring strength in them. Birch is the tree of women. white bark, flexible twigs, leaves that rustle differently than all other trees, lighter, higher, as if they were talking to the wind in a different language than oaks and pines. Birch is delicate and strong at the same time, like a good woman. I soak the whisk in hot water with herbs, and I start with the feet, always with the feet. Your feet carry you through life. Your feet touch the earth through which everything flows, forces, energies, memories, what happened in a given place. Your feet collect all this upon themselves. That's why you start the cleansing from the feet. And then cold water, you pour a bucket over yourself or you run to the river. This moment, this contrast of a hot body and ice-cold water is indescribable to people who have not experienced it. It is like a lightning strike that does not kill but awakens. The breath stops for a moment, the heart stops, and starts with new energy. The skin, which was open and soft like wet linen, closed abruptly, gathering all that heat in itself and defending it. You return to the Banya, steam again, the whisk again, cold water again, 3 times, 5 times, 7, odd numbers because even numbers belong to the dead, to those who have already finished their cycle. They wash with even numbers. We, the living, count in odd ones. After the last cycle, you sit quietly, and in this silence is everything. There are no thoughts that spin. There is no fear that lurks behind the breastbone. There is no grief that lay under the stomach. There is only breath. There is only warmth that slowly flows away from the skin. There is only this wonderful, indescribable emptiness, which is not an emptiness of lack, but an emptiness of fullness. You are emptied of everything unnecessary, and there is room in you for something new. This is cleansing, and no new God whom they now bring with their crosses. None of them has given me anything that even comes close to this moment. I must tell you about the gods, because without the gods you understand nothing of what I am saying. We do not have one God locked in a stone building. Our gods are everywhere. They are in the river. They are in the oak. They are in the fire of the stove. They are in the wind that changes direction and tells you that tomorrow the weather will change. They are in the spring. They are in the Banya. They are in every place where life meets what is greater than life. Rod, he is the one from whom everything comes. Rod is the ancestor of all ancestors. He is the force that made there be something instead of nothing. We do not pray to Rod like to a king. Rather, we remember him. We recognize him in the fact that we exist, that we have parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, and that something of each of them is in us. Rod is that which connects the living with the dead, and the dead with those who are not yet born. Mokosh, she is mine. She is the goddess of women, the earth, weaving, fate, birth, fertility, and death. She is as old as the earth itself. Her face changes, but she always is. In the spring, she is a girl with flowers in her hair. In the summer, a mature woman with heavy breasts and arms full of grain. In the autumn, a middle-aged woman who looks at the harvest and knows what to take and what to leave. In the winter, an old crone with a distaff, spinning fates on dark evenings. I pray to Mokosh before every birth. I ask for her hand upon me. I ask her to stand at the door of the Banya and watch, so that what is to come comes safely, and that she who gives birth has strength. Perun, the god of the storm, lightning, the sky, men's god, warlike, loud. But we women also feel him, because the storm cleanses. When lightning strikes and the rain pours and the wind tosses the trees, This is a great cleansing that comes from above. After the storm, the air is different, sharper, cleaner, as if someone had beaten an old rug and now you can breathe through it again. Swarojic, fire. Son of Swarog, the god of the sky and the blacksmith who forged the sun, Swarojic lives in every fire, in the fire of the Banya, in the fire of the kitchen stove, in the fire of the campfire. You must not spit into the fire. You must not curse it. You must not throw impurities into the fire, because you offend the deity in this way, who gives you warmth and light and the possibility of cooking and surviving the winter. Before every Banya, first I light the fire with gratitude. Literally, I say thank you to him, because the fire in the Banya will work for me for several hours. It deserves a thank you. Mokosh and Wada, together. Wada is the goddess of beauty, love, harmony. When I have a girl's birth to assist with, I always also ask Wada, so that this girl has harmony in her, that she knows how to love and be loved. This is not a trivial wish. This is the most important wish for a woman. My gods do not require churches. They require attention. They require that you look at the world and see that it is alive, that the river is alive, that the tree is alive, that the fire is alive, that the stone, even the stone, has its own history and its own place in the order of things. When you understand this, every bath is a prayer. Every entry into the Banya is an entry into a temple. Every touch of water is contact with something greater than you. I have been at over 100 births. I remember each one, not always by name, but I remember the face of every woman in that moment when her body did a thing that no man will fully understand. When the body ceases to be yours and becomes a passage, when you are simultaneously yourself and something more than yourself. All the births I took in the Banya, and I started always a few hours before. I lit the fire slowly. You must not hurry, because haste brings bad things, chaotic things to the Banya. When the stones were heating up, I prepared herbs. I didn't have the same ones every time, because every woman is different, every birth is different, and every season gives different plants. But a few were always there. Yarrow, Achillea millefolium, always. It stops the blood, helps to heal, gives the body a signal to close what is open. After birth, it is key. Mugwort, I smudge the space of the Banya with it before every birth. The smoke of mugwort drives away what should not be at a birth. Evil, bad intentions, evil eyes. Mugwort deals with it. The steam with mugwort has a different quality. It's thicker, more protective. Mallow, soft, mucilaginous, soothing, for pain, for tension. Mallow is like an arm that embraces and says, you can do it. Nettle, after birth. It gives iron, it gives strength, it builds the blood that the woman lost. Nettle doesn't ask if you want to be strong, it just makes you so. When the woman came, usually with her mother or sister, because other women should be at the birth, men have no place here, the Banya was already hot and ready. The steam smelled of herbs. At the entrance I burned a piece of juniper. Juniper is the strongest protection. Its smoke does not allow anything bad to enter. The woman giving birth undressed. And in that moment, I always saw it, something in her changed. When a woman takes off her clothes and enters the Banya at the moment of birth, she also sheds something immaterial. She sheds the role of mother, wife, daughter, housewife. She is left with only what she is most fundamentally, a body that creates life. I was with her. I held her hands when the pain came in waves. I told her what was happening, because fear comes from not knowing, and not knowing makes the body tense, and a tense body gives birth more difficultly. I said, Your body knows. Trust it. It did this before. Your mother did it, and the mother of her mother. It is in you. Know this. When the child came, there was a moment that is hard to describe, even after 100 births. The moment when something that wasn't there suddenly is, when a second body emerges from within one body, when someone who was in Żywia crosses the threshold to Żywia. I said a welcome. My own words. Every woman has her own. A welcome for the spirit that just came. A welcome for the lineage that just expanded. A welcome for the Banik who guarded the passage. The umbilical cord is the child's first boundary. It connected you by body with the mother, and now I cut it and you begin to be separate. I use a knife that I have only for this, washed, respected, kept in a linen cloth. I tie it with hemp thread, because hemp is the plant of life and death. It accompanies a person from the first to the last day. First bath. Warm water with mallow and chamomile. Chamomile is delicate and calm, good for new skin. When I submerge the child in the water for the first time, I speak to it by a temporary name. Every child gets a temporary name from me for the time before it gets the proper one. This name protects. Evil spirits search by name and they don't know how to really look for the child. The placenta, the płodnia, gets its own burial. I bury it under the threshold or under a tree near the house, because the placenta for 9 months was the home for a new life. It deserves the earth that will receive it and connect it with this place. A woman after childbirth is threshold-like for 40 days. She was there, on the other side. She touched Żywia. She looked into the face of something that is older than the gods, older than words. And now she must return. And the return, a true return, lasts exactly those 40 days. Every 3 days we went to the Banya. Together, she, I, sometimes her mother or sister. The herbs in childbed are different than in a normal Banya. They are stronger, more focused. Yarrow all the time. Oak bark strengthens the vessels, heals what hurts. Raspberry leaves, best for the uterus, they know it, like an old friend. Nettle builds blood and strength. Honey in the infusion after the Banya, because honey is the food of the gods, and the body needs something sweet after birth, something that says to it, you survived, you are here, it is good. During these 40 days, the woman does not participate in the collective rituals of the village. She does not touch strangers. She does not enter the space where many people with different energies gather. Not because she is unclean in a moral sense, but because she is in a state of transition, and this state requires protection. She like a wound, not dirty, but open. An open wound needs a cover. After 40 days, a great Banya, solemn. The women from the village come. I wash the woman from head to toe, literally, every inch, with attention, with words. I say the words of return, and after this Banya, the woman goes out anew into the world, anew as herself, mother, wife, daughter, housewife, but already different, because someone who has been on the edge does not return the same as they left. This is knowledge that no one will tell you, because this knowledge lives between women and is passed on by hands, not words. My life is a rhythm, the rhythm of nature, the rhythm of the gods, the rhythm of water, spring, the drowning of Marzanna. An effigy made of straw and rags, which during the winter we stuff with everything we don't want. Illnesses, sorrows, bad dreams, old quarrels, winter weight. We carry it to the river and drown it, and you must not look back. This is important. Don't look back at the evil, because you give it a chance to return. Then the first spring bath. We enter the river, still cold because it's only March or April, and submerge ourselves up to the neck. It is a shock. It is an awakening. The body screams, and at the same time sings. Cold water after a long winter is like the first word after a long silence. Women wash their hair in the dew at dawn on the day of the equinox. Dew is the condensed water of heaven. It has in it the power of both earth and heaven simultaneously. We don't collect the dew. We go out to the meadow before sunrise and lie on the grass and soak our hair in the dew that has not yet evaporated. Cold grass, wet hair, a dark sky slowly brightening over the east. This is a prayer without words. Kupala, the summer solstice, the most important night of the year. The gods are closest then. The boundary between Żywia and Nawia is thinnest. The powers of herbs are greatest. That's why only on this night can herbs of double power be gathered, herbs that for the rest of the year will be used to treat the most difficult illnesses. We all bathe that night. The river is warm from the summer, maybe 15, maybe 18 degrees, and full of herbs that the women threw into the water before sunset. The Kupala bath washes away all the blemishes of the first half of the year. Everything that has accumulated since spring, and it always accumulates because life is not clean. Life is full of friction and pain and joy and everything at once. Spring, the drowning of Marzanna, an effigy made of straw and rags, which during the winter we stuff with everything we don't want. Illnesses, sorrows, bad dreams, old quarrels, winter weight. We carry it to the river and drown it. And you must not look back. This is important. Don't look back at the evil because you give it a chance to return. Then the first spring bath. We enter the river, still cold because it's only March or April, and submerge ourselves up to the neck. It is a shock. It is an awakening. The body screams and at the same time sings. Cold water after a long winter is like the first word after a long silence. Women wash their hair in the dew at dawn on the day of the equinox. Dew is the condensed water of heaven. It has in it the power of both earth and heaven simultaneously. We don't collect the dew. We go out to the meadow before sunrise and lie on the grass and soak our hair in the dew that has not yet evaporated. Cold grass, wet hair, a dark sky slowly brightening over the east. This is a prayer without words. Kupala, the summer solstice, the most important night of the year. The gods are closest then. The boundary between Żywia and Nawia is thinnest. The powers of herbs are greatest. That's why only on this night can herbs of double power be gathered, herbs that for the rest of the year will be used to treat the most difficult illnesses. We all bathe that night. The river is warm from the summer, maybe 15, maybe 18 degrees, and full of herbs that the women threw into the water before sunset. The Kupala bath washes away all the blemishes of the first half of the year, everything that has accumulated since spring, and it always accumulates, because life is not clean. Life is full of friction and pain and joy and everything at once. I have been gathering herbs since I was 11. Mistress Horka took me for that first time to the morning meadow, when the dew was still lying on the grasses. We walked in silence because herbs are gathered in silence. Horka showed me. She never said, "Take this." She showed and waited until I understood for myself what I was seeing. I learned to read a plant like a face. Every plant has its own history written in the shape of the leaves, in the color of the flowers, in the scent, in the time when it blooms, in the place where it grows. A plant growing by water has different properties than the same plant growing on a dry hill. A plant gathered at dawn has different properties than one gathered at noon. This is not a fairy tale. This is observation, thousands of years of observation passed on by the hands of a grandmother to her granddaughter. I am now 42 years old. My hair is grey at the temples. My hands know every shape of pain and every shape of joy, because they held so many hands and so many heads and so many newborns. My legs know every path between the village and the river, between the village and the spring, between the village and the Banya. Listen, and don't forget. I have now reached the age of 42. My hair has turned grey at the temples. My hands are familiar with every form of pain and every form of joy, for they have held so many hands, so many heads, and so many newborns. My legs know every path between the village and the river, between the village and the spring, between the village and the Banya. Listen, and do not forget. I am now 42 years old. My hair is grey at the temples. My hands know every shape of pain and every shape of joy, because they held so many hands and so many heads and so many newborns. My legs know every path between the village and the river, between the village and the spring, between the village and the Banya. Listen, and don't forget. I am now 42 years old. My hair is grey at the temples. My hands know every shape of pain and every shape of joy, because they held so many hands and so many heads and so many newborns. My legs know every path between the village and the river, between the village and the spring, between the village and the Banya. Listen, and don't forget. I am now 42 years old. My hair is grey at the temples. My hands know every shape of pain and every shape of joy, because they held so many hands and so many heads and so many newborns. My legs know every path between the village and the river, between the village and the spring, between the village and the Banya. Listen, and don't forget. I am now 42 years old. My hair is grey at the temples. My hands know every shape of pain and every shape of joy, because they held so many hands and so many heads and so many newborns. My legs know every path between the village and the river, between the village and the spring, between the village and the Banya. Listen, and don't forget. I am now 42 years old. My hair is grey at the temples. My hands know every shape of pain and every shape of joy, because they held so many hands and so many heads and so many newborns. My legs know every path between the village and the river, between the village and the spring, between the village and the Banya. Listen, and don't forget. I am now 42 years old. My hair is grey at the temples. My hands know every shape of pain and every shape of joy, because they held so many hands and so many heads and so many newborns. My legs know every path between the village and the river, between the village and the spring, between the village and the Banya. Listen, and don't forget.